are heated by gas boilers, which also provide the hot water, and the bulk of the rest use petroleum. The Climate Change Committee also tells us that we can't reach net zero if we continue to use gas for heat. So changing how we heat our homes and buildings is essential to reach net zero. And ending our reliance on gas, in fact, can also help to reduce the cost of living through lower energy bills, something that should give us all pause for thought during debates on the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. And I know this has already been mentioned by several speakers already. And when we add that to the estimated 250,000 extra jobs that will be needed, relevant to the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill just goes up. The government, of course, should be given credit for introducing the Future Home Standard, which aims to ensure that new homes built before 2025 will produce 75 to 80% less carbon emissions than homes built under the current building regulations. And from 2025, the Heating and Building Strategy states that gas boilers will be banned from all new buildings, and from 2035, boilers will start to be phased out from existing buildings. And as far as we know, that is still the government's plan. So the question then is, what will replace gas boilers? My amendments 504GJK and 504GJL are really asking for the government to apply a bit of scientific rigour to answer that question and to be guided by objective evidence as we take these momentous decisions really into major changes to our infrastructure that will be with us for the next several generations. My lords, the facts are that there are plans for a hydrogen village pilot. There has already been a heat pump pilot, albeit nearly all air source, which is different and shown to be 40% less energy efficient than ground source heat pumps. And there have also been various central plant district heating demonstrator projects. That's all excellent and to be applauded, but my lords, there is no planned pilot for ground source networked heat pumps, and that is a gaping gap, and I really do feel that a demonstrator pilot is sorely needed, because whilst networked heat pumps do have plenty in common with individual heat pumps and with district heating, and often get lumped into either one or the other, the reality is that networked heat pumps is a very different approach and needs to be assessed and evaluated on its own merits. So what are they? A ground source heat pump network, and I'll just refer to it as a GSHP in future, works by installing shared network pipework containing water for multiple homes to connect to, as opposed to each home needing the space for its own individual ground source heat pump. The understreet network absorbs heat from the ground at a near constant year-round 10 degrees centigrade and supplies it to each home's heat pump, where it is condensed and increased to the heat required for space heating and hot water. And it's worth noting here that in most homes, the heat pump unit will be smaller than a gas boiler. In a GSHP network, the infrastructure is owned and paid for by a third party, with each home paying an annual fixed network fee. I think the best way to think of a GSHP network is that the infrastructure reflects the gas grids we currently have, which are owned by utilities, and we would in the same way pay to connect to a network, a heat network. So, my lords, ground source heat pump networks have the potential to reach parts that other heating solutions can't. We really do need to, let me just start that again. I think that's a conclusion. My lords, it's claimed that networked ground source heat pumps provide the best clean heat solutions for many properties for which other solutions are not suitable. And I'll just go through some of the solutions the other solutions that are all perfectly relevant and work in the situation to which they are suitable. For example, many properties are not suited to individual air source heat pumps, such as tower blocks or closely packed terrace houses, which lack the space or distance from neighbouring properties. Additionally, as air source heat pumps use around 40% more energy than ground source heat pumps, relying exclusively on air source pumps will place much greater strain on the power grid and require more electricity generation capacity. And I'll just move straight on to hydrogen. Hydrogen will only provide us a heating solution for a small proportion of homes due to the prohibitively high cost of producing it and transporting it. There is also the safety consideration. Hydrogen is the lightest element of the periodic table and notoriously hard to contain. It is, of course, highly combustible also. So, my lords, ground source heat pump networks have the potential to reach parts that other heating solutions cannot. We really do need to evaluate them thoroughly and support them if they can be useful in weaning us off fossil gas. Just want to mention their use in social housing. There are currently around 200,000 high-rise social housing homes heated by direct electric heating. Networked ground source heat pumps provide a pretty good solution, if not ideal, for many social housing properties. Air source heat pumps are not suitable for most tower blocks, and the only other clean heat option is electric radiators or night storage heaters, which will use 3 to 4 times more electricity than ground source heat pumps. And to finish off, I just want to mention a particular pilot called Heat the Streets. Heat the Streets is a world-first pilot project installing ground source heat pump networks in the public highway in the Cornish village of Stithians, and connects about 30 houses to the heat grid. And it's really delivering results in terms of providing proof of concepts, understanding how people take to it, whether they like it or not, and identifying the challenges to delivering it on a larger scale. My lords, it's proving popular with residents. A positive write-up appears in the FT by the BBC's Roger Harrabin. So, however, it will be critical to follow up the pilot to the Stithians project and build on the lessons learnt with a larger scale pilot project, which is what my amendments are asking for. And I look forward to receiving a positive response from the Minister. I just want to briefly say a few words about Amendment 478 on rooftop solar. My Lords, I look forward to the campaign for the Protection of Rural England's new report entitled The Rooftop Revolution, Unlocking the Potential of Rooftop Solar in an Energy, Climate and Cost of Living Crisis, which, as it happens, will be launched tomorrow. And it's such a shame that we've preempted today's debate by a day, preempted its launch by a day. I'm sure it will strongly reinforce the points made by the noble Baroness Lady Hayman. My Lords, in conclusion, it's good to know that since this amendment was first tabled, the government have made some positive commitments on solar, which include taking forward recommendations in the Skidmore Review, which calls for a gear shift in delivery to achieve renewables targets, including both the solar and onshore wind revolution. That is all well and good, but more will be needed to be done to achieve the government's 70 gigawatts by 2035 ambition, and it is vital that the new Solar Task Force takes forward industry recommendations at the pace and scale needed.
My Lords, it's a great pleasure to follow the Noble Lady Baroness Sheehan, and I think the Noble Lady has made such a powerful case for ground source heat network trials that I won't go forward with that, except to note that the case is so clearly much more overwhelming than the very weak to non-existent case for the hydrogen trial, which the government certainly appears to want to pursue. I rise mostly to speak to Amendment 478 with full cross and non-party support, in which the Green Party would have attached our name had there been space, while also noting that I think the Noble Lord Lucas definitely, with his 504GJE, is onto a really important and crucial point. And like the Noble Lady Baroness Sheehan, I was also going to refer Noble Lords to the CPRE report, which is due out in about 9 hours' time. So we're just preempting that a little. I also just wanted to reference something that shows where we could have been, and that's in Huddersfield, the Primrose Hill Solar Village, which was built nearly 2 decades ago now. Driven by the pioneering local Green councillor, Councillor Andrew Cooper. 79 affordable homes built on a brownfield site where people have been generating for those, benefiting for those 2 decades from the kind of housing that we should have been building everywhere in the country all of the time. And the fact that that's in a very deprived area of Huddersfield, the kind of classic levelling up territory, really only demonstrates how much people have suffered because of the policy failures of the past 2 decades. Now, I want to make a few additional points rather than repeating what other people have said. One of the things is that the number of households now retrofitting solar panels has reached its highest level in more than 7 years. More than 50,000 households installed them between January and March. That shows how much people want solar panels. They're going for it, but in the much more expensive, difficult and complicated method of having to retrofit rather than buying a new home that just has them on the roof, which is what Amendment 478 would do. Now, I'm going to cross-reference rather than go through the whole ground, but my honourable friend Caroline Lucas in the other place had a Westminster Hall debate on the 22nd of March on this very subject of rooftop solar on homes. And in that debate, the point was made that what we've got currently fitted, about 2/3 is ground mounted. That is just nonsensical, that we're using up ground. And earlier today, your Lordship's House was debating the need for a land use strategy, a land use commission. And surely it would be saying there's so many things we could be doing with that land that we should not be doing that until we've got every roof, certainly every new roof, has solar panels on it. Now, I just wanted to pick up some points that perhaps might be put in opposition to this amendment, so preempting perhaps the Noble Earl, the Minister. The cost. Yes, it would potentially add a cost to a new property, but it would also be a saving of, it's estimated, between £974 and £1,150 a year on a home. So if we're looking at the cost of living crisis, this is a cost that's very, very rapidly recovered for the people living in these homes. We want to talk about having affordable housing, and part of affordability is actually being able to afford to run that home on a year-to-year basis into the future. Plus, of course, I think it's obvious we're in a climate emergency. The world is not meeting its carbon targets. This is one obvious way that Britain should be making a further contribution. Now, in the debate in the other place, it was suggested that there's other ways of doing this. Maybe solar panels aren't the answer. And of course, this amendment does refer to the appropriate housing. So it's not saying every single house. But more than that, solar panels doesn't preclude also having ground source or air source heat pumps in addition. In fact, the combination of those two things is absolutely valuable. And also, there's been talk about global supply challenges, but the right political will would ensure that it's possible to source these materials outside China, where the bulk of the current, particularly human rights issues regarding solar panels, lay. There's also the question about sourcing silicon, but there are alternatives to that, and breakthroughs are being made all the time. And it has been suggested that this might stifle innovation somehow. This is not just delivering the basic fabric of a building that should be there. It doesn't mean you can't do many extra additional things as well, as the noble lady Baroness Sheehan has so clearly suggested.